Welcome back to Coral Reef Nation. I'm Doris Dean. We're talking about coral reefs, the damage to coral reefs and the ecosystems as a result of global warming, climate change, etc. And my guests are Alexi Boado and Mark Aiken. In our last segment, and we have just a few moments, but I'd like to get to some of the remedies. What would you say would be the first or the most important three things that a government or a tourist country has to consider in order to stop or reverse these conditions?
If I had to generalize about Caribbean countries and coral reefs, and this isn't very different from what we're facing here in the United States, it's probably three things. First of all is advanced sewage treatment for human waste. So removing as much nitrogen as possible from sewage before that effluent is dumped into the ocean, which is usually where it ends up. The second would be control of agricultural sediments, using better agricultural practices to make sure that after they've removed crops, that soil is not left bare to be washed downstream during the next rain event. That's number two. I think number three is reduction in imperviousness in development and trying to mimic the pre-development hydrology. So trying to mimic whatever forest or whatever ecosystem was there before humans came and put in parking lots and roofs and roadways, is to try to mimic those infiltration rates, to move that precipitation back down into the aquifer. So those would be definitely the top three, and they really don't vary between a tropical system and a temperate system, for example. Those are the same issues we face.
Now, are there alternatives that people can consider or think about? Can either of you, in the last couple of minutes, suggest alternatives that, apart from the structural and behavioral things that we have to do, as you mentioned, protect make sure that we don't have the runoff from agricultural, we treat our sewage. What else is there what are the alternatives that some of these poor countries don't have a lot of money to do, but as you're saying, this is where they should be putting their money?
I would say from the watershed perspective at least, I think things that aren't necessarily expensive but are easy to do and that don't require a lot of technical training are to infiltrate your stormwater runoff from roadways, from homes, back into the ground. And infiltration practices are relatively simple from an engineering perspective. That is something that people could do on their individual homes, and also choosing other ways to develop land so that you don't increase your imperviousness, using pervious pavers or gravel instead of cement, so the water will move back down into the watershed. Right.
Any other suggestions?
The last thing along those lines that I can think of that's so important is when you're clearing land, when you're putting in roads, make sure that you're not allowing the sediment to get into the ocean. It's so easy to have that happen. So that means when construction is going on, you have to have proper barriers. You want to get in vegetation that holds the soil as quickly as possible. Reduce the erosion in the drainage by putting in good vegetation and making sure that roads have an ability for that water that runs off then, for example, if they're gravel or dirt roads, for that water to be caught and have that soil stay put on land, because we need the soil on land and the reefs don't need it in the water.
Great point on which to end, and we have run out of time, but thank you so much for joining us and explaining these systems to us. It's something that we need to pay more attention to, and I'm sure we can pique the interest of our nationals to do a better job at protecting their country. Thank you so much for joining us again in Coral Reef Nation.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us in Coral Reef Nation. Until next time, I'm Doris Dean.